55 Chinese military aircraft and 7 naval ships tracked around Taiwan. 5 Americans en route to the U.S. after release from Iranian detention. Survivors citing divine will bury flood victims in Libya. India expels Canadian diplomat. Marilyn Manson fined for blowing nose on concert Camerawoman. Japan firms cut ties with scandal-hit talent agency. Antarctic Sea-Ice Reaches mind-blowing low, alarming experts. Turbocharged plants poised to boost farm output.
Hello, I'm Wei Li. Thank you for joining us on Funday News. It is Wednesday, September 20th, and here are your top stories. The Ministry of National Defense tracked 55 Chinese military aircraft and 7 naval vessels around Taiwan between 6 a.m. on Monday and 6 a.m. on Tuesday. Of the 55 People's Liberation Army aircraft, 27 were tracked in the southwest corner of Taiwan Air Defense Identification Zone. No PLA aircraft crossed the Taiwan Strait Medium Line during that time. In response, Taiwan sent aircraft, naval ships, and used land-based missile systems to monitor PLA activity.
Monday's 55 PLA aircraft followed a record 103 Chinese aircraft tracked around Taiwan in a 24-hour period on Sunday, September 17. On Monday, in response to the incursions, the MND said, "The continuous military harassment by the communist military can easily lead to a sharp increase in tensions and worsen regional security. We call on the Beijing authorities to take responsibility and immediately stop such destructive unilateral actions." The MND added that peace and stability in the Taiwan Strait are the common responsibilities of all parties in the region.
5 Americans who have been wrongfully detained in Iran have been released and are now on their way back to the United States, with a brief stopover in Doha, Qatar. Their freedom is part of a larger agreement that includes the U.S. unfreezing $6 billion in Iranian funds. This development signifies a significant diplomatic achievement after extended indirect negotiations between the U.S. and Iran, despite the fact that it has not fundamentally altered the overall relationship between the two nations. It's worth noting that some Republicans have criticized the release, likening it to a ransom payment.
President Biden welcomed the release of the wrongfully detained Americans, ending their years of suffering. This came after complex indirect negotiations between the U.S. and Iran, despite no formal diplomatic ties. Biden stressed that the deal doesn't change the U.S. position on holding Iran accountable for human rights abuses and nuclear constraints. The groundwork for this deal was laid in Doha 7 months ago, with tangible progress made 5 weeks ago when 4 detainees were moved to house arrest under Swiss ambassador monitoring. Medical personnel met them in Doha, and Secretary of State Antony Blinken had an emotional conversation with them upon their arrival.
In a devastating turn of events, the city of Derna in Libya has been struck by catastrophic floods, resulting in loss of nearly 4,000 lives, with thousands still missing, according to the data from the World Health Organization. These floods were triggered by heavy rainfalls and the sudden collapse of 2 dams, unleashing ferocious waters that overwhelmed the city and its residents. The immediate aftermath of the disaster saw a rush to prevent infections and diseases, with over 2,500 individuals dying in the first 3 days. Derna's hospital and morgues were quickly inundated, compelling authorities to organize mass burials.
The Martoba Cemetery, one of 3 designated for flood victims, received more than 1,000 bodies within the initial week. Initially, bodies were placed in compartments designed for 6 or 7 individuals. However, the arrival of more decomposed remains necessitated the preparation of larger mass graves. With visual identification rendered impossible, authorities began collecting DNA samples for future identification. Despite the profound grief, the community has united to support one another. Graffiti on the walls of collapsed buildings serves as a poignant way to bid farewell.
According to a report from Reuters, India said on Tuesday it had expelled a Canadian diplomat with 5 days' notice to leave the country, just hours after Ottawa expelled the South Asian nation's top intelligence agent and accused it of having a role in the murder of a Sikh separatist leader. In a statement, India's foreign minister said, "The decision reflects the government of India's growing concern at the interference of Canadian diplomats in our internal matters and their involvement in anti-India activities. The concerned diplomat has been asked to leave India within the next 5 days."
Earlier on Tuesday, India dismissed the Canadian accusation as absurd and motivated, and urged it instead to take legal action against anti-Indian elements operating from its soil. The development was the latest in an escalating row between the two nations, with Canada saying on Monday it was actively pursuing credible allegations linking Indian government agents to the murder in British Columbia in June. Niger was a prominent Sikh leader in Western Canada, and according to local police, he was gunned down in his truck in June by two masked gunmen outside a Sikh temple in Surrey, British Columbia.
Marilyn Manson, whose real name is Brian Warner, has been handed a sentence by a New Hampshire judge in connection with an incident from 2019 where he blew his nose on a camerawoman. The judge described the incident as egregious. As part of his sentence, the musician will perform 20 hours of community service and pay approximately $1,400 in fines. Manson was obliged to appear in person in court on Monday. The judge has granted him the option to fulfill his community service obligations in California.
According to a police report, Manson, aged 54, spat on a woman during his performance on August 19, 2019, while she was filming at the Bank of New Hampshire Pavilion in Guilford. The police investigator, after reviewing the event's footage, observed Manson approaching photographer Susan Fountain's camera closely and expelling a large amount of saliva in her direction. Shortly after, Manson returned, knelt over Ms. Fountain, and covered one of his nostrils before ejecting a significant quantity of mucus onto her. The police report further notes that the camera captured Manson pointing and laughing at Fountain as she retreated.
Prominent Japanese companies are severing their connections with the nation's largest talent agency due to its entanglement in a sexual abuse scandal. Corporations such as Nissan and Hyundai have declared their intentions not to renew any contract with Johnny and Associates. Toyota, which had previously held a contract with one of the agent's top talents, informed the BBC that it had no intentions of entering into any further agreements involving Johnny's talent. Additionally, Japan's agricultural minister have announced that it will cease hiring their celebrities. Johnny and Associates stand as Japan's most prominent talent agency specializing in J-pop and boy bands.
In March, a BBC documentary focused on Kitagawa was broadcast, sparking a nationwide discussion and encouraging additional J-pop stars to come forward with their accounts of abuse. The mounting public pressure ultimately resulted in the recent resignation of Julie Fujishima, who took over Johnny and Associates' leadership following her uncle's death in 2019. Her departure followed her public acknowledgement, for the first time, of her uncle's involvement in sexual abuse. On the subsequent day, Asahi Group Holdings, a major beverage company, disclosed its decision to withdraw current television and online advertisements that featured talents affiliated with the agency.
Satellite data has revealed that the sea ice surrounding Antarctica has reached a historic low during winter, raising concerns about the region's vulnerability to global warming. The ice that floats on the Antarctic Ocean surface now measures less than 17 million square kilometers, nearly 1.5 million square kilometers below the September average and significantly lower than previous winter record lows. Additionally, the loss of the land ice from Antarctica had already contributed to rising sea levels, posing a threat to coastal communities worldwide.
Antarctica's extensive ice coverage plays a critical role in regulating global temperatures. However, Antarctica's recent extreme weather events, such as an East Antarctic heat wave in March 2022, pushing temperatures to -10°C when they should have been closer to -50°C, had raised concerns about fundamental changes in the region's climate conditions. Scientists are grappling to pinpoint all the factors contributing to this decline, but some point to it as a key indicator of the region's vulnerability to climate change.
According to the UN Food and Agriculture Organization, nearly 30% of global population face food shortages, with over 10% experiencing severe food insecurity in 2022. Professor Steve Long of the University of Illinois leads the Realizing Increased Photosynthetic Efficiency project, aiming to boost plants' yield by enhancing photosynthesis. RIPE employs digital stimulation to explore millions of ways to optimize photosynthesis and successfully increase 20% yield in soybeans.
Other research groups worldwide are also enhancing photosynthesis, potentially revolutionizing crop production by 2030 or 2031. However, Friends of the Earth Europe said in a report, titled Editing the Truth, warned that such approaches offers only a potential short-term relief of the symptoms of an unsustainable farming industry. Meanwhile, Imperial College London explores the use of lower-energy far-red light for photosynthesis, offering intriguing possibilities for the future.
The answer for yesterday was D, shortfall. We have to borrow money to cover the shortfall between expenditure and revenue. Did you answer correctly? Now let's delve into the news of Marilyn Manson being fined for blowing nose on a camerawoman. Number 1, egregious. 极糟的,极坏的. The teacher found it egregious that a student had plagiarized an entire essay from the internet. Number 2, oblige. 强迫,迫使. Parents are obliged by law to send their children to school. Number 3, retreat. 离开,离去,退去,后退. He watched her retreating figure. Next, we have a multiple choice question for everyone to practice. Which answer would you choose? You can write your answer in the comments section, and the correct answer will be announced tomorrow. And that's it for today's Funday News. Be sure to tune into Funday News from Monday to Friday and click the link below to join Funday for free. I'm Wade Lee, your host. I'll see you next time.